H.E.Jamgon Kongtrul Rinpoche 진행자 도벌 자원님배 고문장 주주도 살답다 쓰면 나오쇼.
Please listen with the proper motivation to these teachings, which is the motivation of bodhicitta, with the aspiration, may I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, may I lead all beings who are as vast as space and who have all been my mothers to the stage of Buddhahood.
라서 드니 다 가자 된다 전주 심지기 골라 중벌에 dinani zawe nyamshage kapki nyamlende kazanyege shusimbati reta jitop kapki nyamlende la ini iredo chayu la tenshin bangwa de la dini yido ngobe yuda treba na yaji tuji chasin chishin tu tsipan na ya tenpa metashi shinja bangwa kyasi la li yin sumati sikji nishu zasun batiri.
Yesterday we started to speak or see the verses related to ultimate bodhicitta, and we saw in the last verse that we spoke about, verse 22, the essential practice regarding the practice of ultimate bodhicitta during the meditation phase. And then now we move into the verses that concern bringing that ultimate bodhicitta into the post-meditative phases. And the first verse that we look at is verse 23. That's about seeing the desired as empty or free from true existence. So we read verse 23. Even though you may encounter pleasurable experiences as delightful as a rainbow in summer, not regarding them as real events and relinquishing all clinging, this is what Bodhisattvas do.
Dine nyamshagi kaptela ta zo tada dundam janju simjigi nyamne kap tadurwa. Dine dundam janju simjigi kaptu tadu nyamsha la ta chutamje tongyin to kombasa na tatu ta chajingi lamdu jene. Dine nyamshagi jela ta jitop ki kapsu ta nawa sangpu ta nyemba tenso yungu yorwa. Yongbin neka zo tsawe chane kaza tila yongsa yila maji sede. Yila maji pati zo jitob ki kabla tsawe chane yila maji be tone te je nawa mara nawa sangpu tang nawa nyemba la soba tamji yila maji ne tene chutamji chumada milam tayo ki ngang la ni taya chire lakbar to 다 상인안에 빼놨다 상호 도시락 요도 니 체베 가서 아직 나게 냠샤기 갑이 지가 덴생게 나와테 냠샤기 갑라 시와이나야 제톱 갑수 다야 넘버 인와 유튜브 따디기 갑수 야 대바지스 버레테나야 데 갑라야 밀람지 나와다 아니 빼나 자수역이 나와다 덴조기 아니 빼라 제네 아니 추탐지 데메도 또 덴데직 안난고 요래 나네 자외 신자 방야된 또 잘해 놔야 된소리.
We have seen yesterday in the verse and explanations on the practice of ultimate bodhicitta during the meditation phase that it's about viewing all phenomena as empty or meditating on the emptiness of all phenomena, and that's carried a part of the Mahamudra practice and sort of the foundation for what follows. And we have seen the aspect that then also all appearances, whether they're positive or negative, that they should not be conceptualized. And this is really the key aspect actually for the post-meditative practice of ultimate bodhicitta. So it will happen after we get out of our meditation that there will be, appearances. There will be positive appearances, pleasant ones or unpleasant experiences, appearances. And here it's saying that we should look at all phenomena, whatever appears, as being dreamlike. So, for example, we perceive something nice, an appearance that's an object of desire because it's pleasant. And we have, in the meditation phase, we have realized that all phenomena are emptiness. We have meditated upon that. And we might, forget about it later in the post-meditative phase. But here it's really saying to carry that understanding, that knowledge, that insight into your daily experiences. So we meet with a pleasant object, with something that's an object of desire, and we look at it as being illusionary, like a rainbow or like a dream. So we look at it knowing that it doesn't have a true existence. And this really is a method. It's about giving up attachment. That's all.
다, 다다다데 자유기 값으로 자유기
Mhm.
드니 데레 독바 어 셰다인도 데 동안 나즈 멜람 부시도 툰난 덴바송 야당체 대체 메텐체의 제비세 추바다와 캐슬라린시 미슈츠브시바데 당와 당유된시 방어스 다디 자위 전에 로당도 자위 전에 직벌해 이 지금 당부 제도기 당보다 니번니 직 자유 직 당유
Mhm.
계단지로
Mhm. Lasso. So this verse 23 is directly speaking about attachment. So um, how to deal with ultimate bodhicitta and post meditation towards objects of desire, objects of attachment. And the next verse is about how to deal with unpleasant objects, objects that could be that could give rise to aversion or even dislike or aggression. So that's verse 24. It says, suffering in all its manifestations is like a child's death in a dream. Mistaking illusory phenomena for something real saps your energy. So, recognizing the disagreeable occurrences in your life as illusion. This is what Bodhisattvas do. So, this is the verse on seeing, recognizing objects of aversion or hatred as free from inherent existence. That's all.
제도기 값수 추담지 데미도 따고요 로와 말에 냠샤기 값수 추담지 데미도 따고요 데미도 공야 공부요 아니 제도기 값수 데니 추담지 자위 전에 다 데미도 따고요
Mhm.
또 공부도 따오냐 또 중세 쳐버려
So, during the meditation phase, we are meditating on the true nature of all phenomena being free from an inherent existence. And then during post meditation, we are not exactly meditating about it, but we are bringing that insight, that meditation knowledge into the practice. So we are actually looking at phenomena, seeing them, being without having a true inherent existence. So there's a little difference between seeing something or meditating upon something.
이 냠샤기 값수 고무로 제도비 값수 따거리 로
Yeah.
데인도 다 데나라 베로샤웨나 디 체데 자순다고 자순다고 따고요래
Mm-hmm.
베직들아 춘나 또 따기도
Mm-hmm.
밀람도 춘나 밀람도 데인도 다 알아서 제 알아서 파무로라 차츠메나 파무기 냠낸 것들아 제 다 제토비 값수 파목에 제토비 값더라 주미 빼중이 스네 시간상조 직시야 열에 빼중이게 주담지 밀람도 주마도 보아도 라소비게 주미 빼중이게 아 줌센도 제네 되네 나와 상화당에 바탐지 아니 제가 주담지 송죽 라타비요레 덴바 마임바 덴도도 마타 덴도도 타와 마임바 주탐지 아니 동신 동신도 아니 다음에 봐게 돌아다야 라소바 데 주메베 주니스라 덴데 송구요레 에 덴소 만치야다 데다오다오레
So during the meditation, we meditate, we familiarize ourselves with the true nature of all phenomena, and then in the post meditation, we carry that outlook into the world. So directly looking at phenomena through that understanding. And there are two examples that are being given for that view, outlook on life with that understanding of all phenomena being empty of a true nature. So one example is that they are like viewed as being like a rainbow. And another example is that they are being viewed as illusory, like a dream, dreamlike. And actually, in the instructions for the post meditation of the Pagmo practice of Dorje Pamo, there are given 12 examples of what it means like to view phenomena as illusory. So the one example is that of the dream. Then there's the example of like water bubbles and some and 10 more examples that are being given. So that actually means with these examples, it means we are looking into the world, into phenomena as being not truly established, that they do not have a true inherent existence, and that they are therefore empty. And because they are empty, that also means that they do not possess a self. That's all.
다티 인데 자외 다다 식제데 코나 먹어야 개민도와 이나야 더 되게 땡땡로 저데 제토비 갑라 나와 강셔와 탐제 얘는 메남도 좀았다 여기 돌아 근데 봤다네 더니 지란도르게 내가 간대지 레베이나 근데 저기 여를 때 이나야 지 댄시 게 토네야 지 레지스탄바이나 야디 야지 뉴몬베 레게 원도 도구요래 근데 yang alonso chumada milam tawe ki ngala dosha baina yang di tachi to nyumon begi leke wando dogu yombari.
These words again, so of this verse are speaking about that instruction towards about the post meditation. So here it says, in short, that we should look at all phenomena being like a dream, being like a magical display or like an illusion. And then with that understanding, with that insight, it also means that we will not have a grasping towards these appearances as being truly existent. And with that, whatever we then do with this understanding, our actions will not become causes for samsara because of that view. Instead, if we carry out our activities in the world with an attachment towards phenomena, thinking that what we perceive is truly existent, then we are actually accumulating karmic seeds because we are operating on the basis of our kleshas, of the mental afflictions, and therefore we place other seeds for samsara into the ground, so to say. But with that outlook, recognizing all phenomena being, all appearances being illusory, like a dream and so on, we are recognizing that they lack a true inherent existence, so we don't have an attachment or clinging onto phenomena, thinking they are truly existent, and therefore we do not accumulate with our actions, our whatever we do in the day, new seeds for samsara. We do not accumulate them in that case. So.
So tenen 되게 제톱이 깔로 조 냠린 나다는데 다기 데메도 다 되래. 다 대조 되래로
Mhm.
조 가는데 되래. 다 되게 절라 파친도를 하버래. 파친도.
So this is really the key aspect that what has been explained here of what to bring into our post meditation. So on terms of the practice of ultimate bodhicitta. So again, what was that? That key point here is to carry the view of a lack of a true existence concerning appearances, phenomena, and so on. And then we move on and we will look at the practice of the paramitas, the 6 paramitas. That's all.
그래서 다 파친도기 나네. 다 믹스 파친도도 용다래. 대인데 믹스 게시 쉬고야 민도로. 대인데 다 파친도기 나라. 대니 조 시랍기 전에 당 조 간소래. 니로 이어지는 니로요. 제대 소남기 초지다 지다 희식의 초 니라 젠디 소남기 초라 짐바 좀 써봐 뜻음디 소남기 초라 장기열에 근데 삼된다 실험니데 희식의 초라 바저기열에 근데 디 준비때 니가라 용초고열에
All of you are probably familiar with the paramitas, which is a very widely known and taught topic, the 6 paramitas. So there will not be, Rinpoche says, I'm not going into too much detail on the paramitas. One key point to mention here is that if we look at the 6 paramitas, they can generally be divided into 2 groups. The paramitas that are serving merit, accumulating merit, and the paramitas that are serving the accumulation of so-called wisdom. And which of these paramitas belong to which category? So generosity, moral discipline or ethics, and patience belong to the field of merit. And then samadhi and wisdom, knowledge, they belong to the aspect of wisdom. And then there is the last paramita that was not mentioned here is diligence, and diligence belongs to both categories. So diligence both belongs to the accumulation of wisdom and to the accumulation of merit.
라서 당분이 숨을 봐 조샤이 장주 대벨로 장당거나 치롱어 본남라 치롱어 본남라 뮤직이 대체 랜다 메라 메레베 짐바동 야슬라네 찍제 디 짐바테 테마치 수르 메바 라운드 메도나 신든 도바 도바 게미네 대체 시베 덴바 메바이 수름 송아 야슬라네 딘니바치 Tene kewe lonju dobe kyasila nije tamji rinjin tertasan teshe kunla shiri mebayi soba gomba kyasila rin siyate de sumba tichi. Ta de sumde zo dagi gomba shibu sonam so.
So now we will look at the next 3 verses, which are the verses that belong to the accumulation of merit concerning the paramitas of first generosity, then moral discipline, and then patience. So we will read the next 3 verses. The first one about generosity is verse 25. Whoever wishes to attain enlightenment must abandon even the body, let alone all outward things. So giving generously without self-interest or hope for karmic reward. This is what Bodhisattvas do. Then verse 26, without living ethically, you cannot achieve even your own well-being, and it would be absurd to try to bring about the well-being of others. So unimpeded by worldly ambitions, monitoring your own ethical behavior. This is what Bodhisattvas do. And last, verse 27, for Bodhisattvas seeking to enjoy what is wholesome, everything harmful is a priceless treasure. So practicing acceptance in the face of adversity without any resentment. This is what Bodhisattvas do. Thus,
근데 사회 짐박이 제레데 말아서 짐박이 냠len 지구 요르 때나 짐박이 제레지어라 제레 레가데
yeah.
짐박이 레가데 가르스나 조 세나 데라 조 가서디 미템바 초데파 메버스야데레
Mhm.
데나네 조부 다 되샤데레 로 착심 차심디 인가라서 소소지오 주다 쇼충버인데 짐바 땅와라 짐바 땅와기 조가라서 유당무부는서 디나네 자소 응와라 종무부게 자라든서 신샤 쇼충버인데 근데 데라 때네 가서 그래 디도베 탑라 짐베 냠넨 나야도 소소테 신자기 쳐들이
So, what is actually the key function of generosity? I mean, we all have heard about generosity, but what is its real purpose, its real function? It is to eliminate so-called greed. Greed, which is something that's not desirable to cultivate. And actually, that means that this is a direct antidote for desire, because greed comes from desire. So we as ordinary beings, we are all full of that desire, that attachment, especially towards material things. And therefore this paramita, generosity, is serving as a remedy for desire and attachment. That's all.
때문에 안다 드린 저당 알아도 지dengen 추추기 나라 배는 짐바 땅와이나 아니 소소기 짐바 땅만 나신게 아니 마음보다 소소기 나지 주노 반주 론주 제 파짐바 땅와이나 소라기 제베게 레단 거디게 레 남현로데 소소 든데 자기레스 든데 송야 여러와
Yeah.
tenzo mise da chika so jimba tang wege pyeon do rete ina zawe jimba ki jele te ta yikong do shubun na shi shencha pang wege tabri.
Mhm. And very often in the Dharma teachings, it is mentioned generosity as a practice of, giving all kinds of things to others. And it's said that this practice actually makes us accumulate positive karma that then in turn will make sure that we will get things back in return, that there will be kind of a karmic reward by being generous. But that's just so-called positive side effect of being generous, but it is not really about the practice of generosity. But the practice of generosity is really mainly about abandoning, removing attachment and clinging. That's all.
그냥 아주 지지 메라기 손지요래. 그 간다 공기 고르기 나라 가르쳐서나 좋은 안주다 현장에 더 된대게 쌤데 종소나 되게 준비 발전이 잘하고 열었으니 송고요.
And there is in one of the songs of Milarepa says that the paramita of generosity is when in the mind, desire and attachment, clinging are not present. When the mind is free from attachment and clinging, then that is the paramita of generosity, he says.
이 진바승의 초진에 배낭하는 속에 진리에게 돌아야 뭐 증거여라서 얘네 초진에 진바스 주대 제 동심다 템바 배나 추탐지 다음에도 또 사회쇼고라 저 지가서 그래 추탐지 제 여바 된대로 오기 하나 따고요 말아
Mm-hmm.
다 따고요 말에 되는데 콜솜맘이 빼기 하나다 그런 ne diyor koso mavi beki ngala ne diyor de ndegi ngala ne de koso Tene jimbe parchen seju te mikse ane ta didu chagu yore kasa jikdenle debege parchen jimbe parchen te ta didu chagu yore. Te mando chochine di jele ki ngora tongu yore te chochine di jele rangsana mare soso ge danzin pangwege tabde ane zo parchen drukla soba tenzo rinpa yungu yore. Ina zawe chane soso shencha la soba tamche nzole rado deso na jimbe parchen zo tadam jizu minagi kun songbo tardore.
So there are, there's a difference between the levels of practicing the paramitas, whether it's sort of beginner level or whether it's practicing the paramitas that are beyond the worldly, so that beyond the worldly quality of practicing the paramitas, there is a more profound aspect as well. So generally, when we talk about the paramita of generosity, then we associate it with the function it has, which is, serving as a skill to remove attachment and clinging. And then, as Milarepa said, that therefore, when we have given up attachment and clinging, then we have achieved the paramita of generosity. And then there's another level of this paramita of generosity, which is the beyond the worldly generosity paramita. And here, it's when the practitioner realizes that all phenomena are free from a self, then the practitioner will not look at phenomena as being truly existent, but the practitioner abides in the realization that all the three spheres of subject, object, and action are free from any point of reference. There is no conceptualization, a dual perception of any of these three spheres. And at that time, then we're talking about having obtained the paramita, realized the paramita of generosity. So that on that level, the paramitas are actually a tool to remove ego clinging. All 6 of them. That's all.
Dina na shinge taso ta churimdero churim. 추림기 질리조라고 되가르스나 ngaranzo 제가 추림 수주대 타치도 ngaranzo 류기 제 남샤게 토니다 제 방자다 숨자 된속에 토라 ngaranzo 섬탄 거라 라바게 토네 데라 섬탄 거래
Yeah.
하웨게 토네 추림 송세야 되가르스 되고서 람 데가라 소소게 미유 강 여베나 다티 추림다 된소나 lam trigo top nieba chi chagyo churinda densona
Migula.
pena chatsuna pena maranzo sanji ji komba top tu ke samba yona yang chudre mesona ani sanji ge komba taji to top nieba rese tene yamare churim de ge maranzo ki churim ji yonsoina 당에게 람 산지지 고마 톱두게 둔바드니 예 데토벨라 아니 다 미든 비초 된절리 봐나 송기인스 저 미든 비초 된절라 조기 민스네 티방인스 튼비초라 조기인스 삼베게 소소게 람지 스웨샤버리 추짐되게
알레라소.
람 템포지 스웨다 디 람데라 템바이나 다 가지마도 디 미유데 톱비로 베나 추짐도 어디 조 가르스나 가 draw 차대요 draw
Yeah.
you'll drip a draw 차고요. 근데 제가 추림세야 돼 인지민지 rabjung게 추림 짬랑 못이야 말에 디스선도다 총중래 추림세야 돼 소수게 셈라 제가 토비아라 템포 draw 진게 지라 추림세요. 다디 추림데 가는 레고스 되고서 담자 켈레 득든존 레트는 연구
So the discipline next that's this talked about, not discipline, the paramita is talked about is discipline, and what's the function of discipline. So on the most superficial, let's say, level, discipline is the observance of certain principles concerning behavior with the body. So there are certain things that we should avoid doing, then there are certain things that we should cultivate. But on a more profound level, actually, discipline is what helps us to really pave a stable path towards achieving the goal that we have set up. So, for example, if we want to achieve Buddhahood, become fully awake, then if we don't have discipline, then it's not sure if we can achieve actually that goal. So instead, if we have the goal of achieving Buddhahood and we do cultivate discipline, moral ethics, then we are actually paving a way where we sort of commit towards practicing, cultivating what is helpful and positive on this path, and of giving up what is not suitable, what is to be abandoned on that path. And then that makes really a clear, stable path on ground on which we can walk. We are really building a road for us where it's just a matter of time when we will achieve that goal that we have set for ourselves. So it's the discipline really is like the friend that helps you accomplish your goal. Here we're talking about Buddhahood. So that really helps you, is necessary for that. So when we talk about discipline, don't necessarily just think about discipline for is something for ordained monastic Sangha members. No, not at all. It is necessary for anyone. So because it is the friend that accompanies you on the way to your goal. So that really helps you to pave a stable path where you will walk towards your prefixed goal. And that really comes, that so-called friend comes from our commitment, from our promise or vow of what we are working towards. That's all.
답변은 알아서 벽에게 나라 추림 시대 망치에 계획이 초라 고알린 거고로
Mhm.
테마도 메게와 켈레 가서 그래 메게와 켈레 담자지야 발라서 보도도 추림기를 두고 말이죠 추림기 책대 계획이 돌아 샤고요 제한게 돈이 또 아주 벽이 추림기 책
Mhm. And in Tibetan language, the word discipline, tsultrim, is always associated with discipline towards something positive, something that goes towards virtue. So when we just hear the word discipline, it's never about, a discipline of committing something that is negative or not virtuous. That's not what we can understand from the word discipline. So it's always connected with dedicating oneself towards what is virtuous.
대인도 제가 켈레 담자데 미게와라 영어 초거래 게와라 영어 초거래 추림생에게 책대 마음쳐야 돼다 게와 rāng shāyā tō chīk rōwa.
Yeah.
Nā tā kēlēn tamchā tō tā pēnā tsūrīm kī ngō tē kēlēn tamchā tē rē, sō kēlēn tamchā tē rē. Kēlēn tamchā sā chū tē chūlū chōpū nī yōyā mā rē, pēnā chimsā kē nā rā kēlēn tamchā tē yōyā bā rōwa. Shōgā chīmē bā rā kēlēn tamchā hō rē, chō chōgmō kē bā rā kēlēn tamchā hō rē, pāmā tā pūgū yē bā rā kēlēn tamchā tā īchī lā sō bā yōnggō yō rē. Tē īchī tā kēlēn tamchā tō sā kā kūchā mē bā rā, tēnī tēndē tsaani mē bā yī na, tēnī 디 연구 말어 이치 더 툼불라서 연구 마 툼불 연구에 좀 전에 가서는 지기질의 이치 지기질의 개념 담자에 지기질의 다든데 지금自动 지기 있으면 개념 담자 야나 하나게 파마든서라 보내는 파마레서에게 근데 이치 당 이게 파마든서라 야부지게 모든 게 바지게면서 담자라서 봐 대대 최단 지든 이게 돈이 연구요래 다
Yeah.
추적의 돈이 개념 담자든서 대 추정기 되라샤고 요래 대인도 추림세야데 가래 돈에 때바이나 게중으로 추림금 어디 가와이나 연구를 대인도 추정기 냠내스야데 지 추적의 쪽으로서는 마다 말한 좀 밑세게 나라야 추림세 켈레 담자스키 리턴서데 연구요래 켈 소속의 켈레 담자 제바이나 야부차기 여봐 알아 자기 요래 심장이나 래 다지 더 빈수이나 걔네 담저 템부 요디 야부 차고라 베데나신레 또다 팔친 루든서 만체 등하란서 메세나네 가래 연구 여바데 아니 짜도 되네 드니 냠린 파트릭 샤바지레 마도 만zo 메세다 자네 저와 메베게 팔친 그 도기 냠레스 드네게 말해
You know, when we talk about a commitment or a promise, then these are things that can always be, if we just you hear the word commitment, promise, it can be committing to something good, virtuous, or non-virtuous. It can be both. This word is not really defined as being a commitment, always having to be committing towards something positive. It could be also towards something negative. And when we look at the word discipline, at least with the Tibetan connotation, it's always referring to a commitment towards something virtuous or positive. So the essence actually of discipline is a commitment. It's some sort of promise or commitment. And that is therefore the essence of discipline, a commitment. And here we are talking a commitment towards a Dharma path. So this commitment belongs to the paramita of discipline. But again, the so-called commitment or promise in general, that's not something that's exclusive to religion or a religious context, because we can have commitments, promises in so many situations of our daily lives. For example, in our relationship between husband and wife, with the children, with one's parents. And these so-called commitments or promises are very, very important to create a stable relationship in which we can really trust each other. Because without such a commitment or promise, it's very difficult to really trust and lean onto each other, because there will be some kind of uncertainty or not being sure, and for example, there could be the promise, that we are the promise of love, or a promise of we are really your parents and you are my parents. So there is a certainty that gives huge trust in the relationship and therefore very stable ground. So these commitments or promises, whether they are in worldly terms or connected to spiritual practice, they are very, very important for making the situation evolve positively, for creating that strong bond, strong relationship, and a positive relationship. So in all regards, just as with these example, we can see that the paramitas, they have not arisen, the 6 paramitas, out of nowhere, but the 6 paramitas, they are really coming from the world. They have been inspired and taken from the world. So it's not that they are not related to life at all, but they are very much related, and instead actually they are coming from our life, the 6 paramitas. That's all.
Tenin söbade retso söbade manchi dirwa ji me paro bogi susolo ne bai dindra ke pala soba tenin shela ya degi le mate ba söba kumya la sobare tenin kanda kanda söbade söba la soba tamje ta dagi dunso manchi 다 나랑서 지속이 나라 제게 진백이 진바 동선도 된바 어디나 신기 추진 개념 담자 여바쯤니 말했다 되게 돌아야 지금 로 짐네 봐 내가 랭기 배나 송자 송고야 반자 방고야 돌아야 날렌 땅기 이 숨바데 아니 수바 고며 다디 숨된 알아서 지다 메시지 나라 여바이나 메시지나야 지시다 강에 매버와 대화 용기 그래서 메시지 나라 징에 상부 체계를 년바 체계 년바 체계 값을 써봐 보면 하지. 근데 진바 당원의 값을 니 소소를 쓰나 자지가 초 미든 저거 초보다 좀 발라서 베기는데 뒤세바이나 진백이 냠린 제베 이것도 동선도 된 말이에요. 이 동선 여백이 돈에다 제 제토기 값을 냠린 타기 공도 시에바나시 답되고 요래. 근데 내나신 그 추림도 어디 줘 아니 소소기 미유들이야 초도 진기 람 노르마 준기 다 데이터 다 간다 다 덴조 마치 소남기 초라 틀라 샤고레 소남기 초다오니 쪼고가라 좀 메시다올라 냠네 소남기 초도 냠네 직제토나 저저 다다기 메시다올라 차츠마이나 류 예베캅데베기 메시데라 베데오요레 가서 류던테베기 쪼고 냠네레
Therefore, also, so next is patience. Now, patience is the capacity to bear or withhold harm, be patient with when others harm us or there are non-favorable circumstances. And all of these paramitas that we have just talked about, they are very relevant in society. You know, for example, generosity is the mindset where we give, a giving heart, a generous heart. Or then we have seen just now the aspect of discipline, which is connected to promises, to commitments, which is also very relevant, important in life. And of discipline towards upkeeping positive, you know, habits or actions, and then giving up unwholesome things in our life. And then there's the aspect of being patient, patient with life when it's not easy, when it's challenging, when somebody harms us, and so on and so forth. So all of these qualities, they are very relevant to our society and to our daily lives, and they're actually helping us enormously when we can cultivate them, because they help us to really feel increasingly joy also in our daily lives. So you know, instead of being greedy, being more generous and giving, maybe somebody just has taken something from you without you actually giving, and after that you can remind yourself, okay, and you know, you let it go. Or being patient towards, again, when somebody harms you in whatever kind of way, or then the discipline that's supporting you in staying and sticking towards what is healthy, wholesome, positive, and giving up negative things. And in the same way, all of that can inform and be relevant for our Dharma practice as well. We have seen that the aspect of discipline is really like a friend on the path, and that makes us sure that we stay on the right path, that we do not enter a wrong path. And so these three paramitas of generosity, discipline, and patience, they are accumulating merit. And these are three paramitas that we really actually can practice when we are alive, because we are alive, because we have this body. We need the body, the life to practice these. That's all.
근데 다 준비돼 라운드 바시 주변이라 야골라 메슈 도다 존트나 조건 된도 연대 존내지 준비 좀 봐야서 다 되게 지단 준비 세야 돼 왜야 지단 되게 좀 봐봐 송구여라.
And then next verse is 28, which is about the paramita of diligence, or also often translated as joyful effort. And the verse reads, even the hearers and the self-realized ones who practice for their own benefit exert themselves as strenuously as someone putting out a fire on their own head, all the more then, on behalf of all beings, cultivating joyous perseverance, the source of all wholesome qualities. This is what Bodhisattvas do. So this verse is, of course, showing us how important and necessary it is to practice this paramita of diligence as well. That's all.
그래서 당연히 뜻이 망부 잡드나로 정말 잘 말해.
Lasso Rinpoche says I have to yeah, if I say too much we will not finish on time today, so we have to be careful.
네, 드린 니마 타마 레디인데 타마 쳐토가 쪽으로.
Lasso.
다 신내다 라돈니데 라션으로 신내 랍도 된데 라돈 기니모 넘버 좀 버시지네 소미실레 양다 대바이 섬대 공부기야슬라니스 다 파칭 이게 마 되는데 마치 된셔가 대파 롱 때문에 샤로거든
Rinpoche says, yeah, we have to make sure that we finish everything today, and therefore we move on to the next verse. And when Rinpoche says, I'm reading these things out, it's almost, I'm reading it and it becomes oral transmission like a lung. So we are moving on to verse 29, which is about practicing shamatha and vipassana. It says, when you have understood that penetrating insight imbued with calm abiding can completely eliminate defilements, then practicing meditative absorption that goes beyond the four formless ones. This is what Bodhisattvas do.
다지나 신내세야 되게 좀 뭐시라래. 디나네 라동데 게 치슈래. 그냥 라동 게 정보 임발아야 그 라동 게 정보 레스네 야 라동 정보 공대 바치 신내 점네 먹으나 야 디드기요 말에 가야스나 신내 랍도 덴벨 라동 게 센데 가서 신내게 제 냠용도 마소나 제 땡인 세로 샘치지도 미토비기 땡인세 덴레직 템보 메사베 쇼고라 그냥 라동기 이시기에 터바이나 요런문에 두고 말해. 이시기에서는 제 라동기 아니 냠nen데 요런문에 두고요 말해. 데 요런문에 버져버려 인진민지 당고 신내데 야고 공고 요래.
Mhm. So this verse is speaking about the importance of practicing both shamatha and vipassana. Vipassana, superior insight, as it's translated, Laktong in Tibetan, is of course extremely, extremely important. But if we only practice Laktong vipassana, superior insight, that's also not okay. Why? Because, so first, if we look at the meaning of shine, shamatha, that is the capacity to abide in meditative absorption. So that means to be able to focus one-pointedly the mind and stay there. Abide with a one-pointed focus with the mind. And if that is not stable, so if there is no stability in the mind, then we cannot really cultivate vipassana for much time. It will be a very short moment, but there is no stability. So vipassana cannot really unfold because it cannot really stay, because there's no stability in the mind. And because of that, because we need that mental stability, shine, shamatha, is very important. And in fact, the text here says, penetrating insight, so Laktong Vipassana, that's penetrating insight, should be imbued with calm abiding, that they have to go together. Lasso?
그래. 드니 예. 디엔데 알아서 냠네 당보 제베캅소 신내들아야 알아서 셈바 찌지도 로테고야 지다 아니 데냠네 시작을 토라 샤고야 데 개침부시라래 데 신내 야부지면서 쇼라 드니 라동든 순냠네 라동기 냠네데 조 투섬 곰숨기 시럽 숨나 때네 라동기 아니 냠네데 야지 두고 요래라 디나네 라동기 냠네 싸워테 곰라 토도 그래 곰기 싸워테 아니 제 템보 띵이 진도라 잘레테 버데 띵이 진데 계신 보시라래 시라 숨데 게 충분해데 에나 디나네 아니 그소리 곰발에 때니 좀 시럽게 충분해 곰발에 때니 좀 여기 시럽게 싫어데 신내랑 자고요.
So first, when we start practicing, we train in calming the mind and bringing the mind into a place of stability where it can abide one-pointedly. So we start to build a foundation of mental stability where the mind stays focused on one single object. And And Vipassana then actually builds on this foundation, on the stability. And Vipassana builds on this. And also, Vipassana is really connected to the wisdom that comes from study, contemplation, and meditation. That's what makes then the Vipassana increase and increase and deepen. So Vipassana also is rooted in meditation, and meditation comes from mental meditative stability. So meditation comes into being when there is a mental meditative stability. So therefore, this meditative stability, that's also sometimes called meditative absorption or like dhyana in the in Sanskrit. That's the very important basis for Vipassana, because the most important wisdom then in the Vipassana practice is the wisdom that comes out of meditation. And for having wisdom that is arising from meditation, we need to have shamatha. That's all. So shine.
Yeah, ladon de kaptela. Shiramena part roaching ai. Zobe changju toba mini be tabdan tenshi kursu me tobi shirab gomba kyasala. Inshine da degi zo shirab song karwa. Da ganda shirab de zo dami tobi shirab re. Dami to sawi shugola kursu me toba karwa. Nga yul chele la soba de sum dirwa.
Yeah.
Shirab de kechumbo shirare. Dini shirab 대조 다음에 또 실업세나 다음에 또 베기 이시들라 실업세 우리라
Mm-hmm.
다 텐데 다음에 또 사회 쉬고라 데 콜숨 세딩 안주 용거라 콜숨 랑 아니 제바보 안 젤레 니 율세 데 용거라
Yeah.
다 데숨 아니 다음에 또 사회 쉬나 데 콜숨 미도바 아 다디 용거래
Mm-hmm.
니 콜숨 미도베 아데 미도바라 때네 Tene kaza dame te to sawe na kursum ge lega te gari cheba ina ya ta gari cheba isna je dame to be ge kone te kursum ge chu tamje je mi to be nga la je lega leba ina te kaza ngi ge sheba na je jiden ge jiden ge jula to yo mare
Mm-hmm. And then the next verse is the verse about the paramita of knowledge or wisdom, based on how it's translated. Actually, Sherab, I would just say knowledge right now. So the sixth paramita. And that's, of course, a very important paramita. And here it refers actually to the wisdom that realizes selflessness. So here, when we talk about the paramita of knowledge, it is the wisdom that realizes selflessness. And once we have realized selflessness, then all the perceptions through the three spheres, so we have subject, the three spheres are subject, object, and action. All these phenomena perceived through the three spheres, they will be non-conceptualized. And any action that we therefore, whatever we do then with this comprehension, as was already mentioned, will not become again a cause for samsara.
na re tende tda 얘기 다 이슈면 시럽 코랑라 tene tübe şerif sam bir şerif kon bir şerif gene şirabla yevad manda sum yonguyore.
Generally, as we just already heard before, towards knowledge, for knowledge, one can speak about the knowledge that comes from study, from contemplation, and from meditation. So there are these three kinds of different kinds of knowledge.
예. ena tübege şirabde ngar madoba ani sar sartu tosena da hangar ma topa nga manshimba nyumongbale ya sangyongdi shirab dambu tubare di dondo chigorwa mishibali dhugu ware.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, sambala dene tezom la soba ani meba chawi yore.
Hitzom, also.
Right?
Mhm.
Dene zowe shirab de kaza sambi shirab la dene tezom de meba sugu yore. Dene gomba de zowe shenege nyamlen dan delne shenege nyamlen rang mare shenege nyamlen da delne dene kaza wale tuba da samba ki nyamlen de shenege nyamlen da deyonde dene gombe shirab singe de ngawe kiki yore. gombe shirab dege zo 가르치고 그랬을 때 그것도 말한서 게 박차데 소 장구열에
If we look at what is the difference of these three kinds of knowledge, so the knowledge that comes from studying is the knowledge that removes not knowing, that removes certain veils of our kleshas. So the knowledge of study is to realize and understand something that previously we did not know, that previously we just did not know. So we are removing some of our kleshas, our afflictions, with the wisdom of study, and we are getting knowledge that previously was not there. So we are sort of, yeah, clearing away not knowing. And then with contemplation, that's where we are actually removing doubt. So we have study, contemplation, and meditation. And with contemplation, we remove doubt. And with meditation, then we are actually bringing into the Shine Shamatha practice the wisdom that we have previously grown through study and contemplation. So we bring the wisdom of study and contemplation into the meditative stability of shamatha, and then we generate the so-called wisdom or knowledge that comes from meditation. And the purpose of this kind of wisdom that results from meditation is that it has the capacity to purify negative karmic imprints that we have in our mind stream from previous karmic accumulations. Lasso.
그래 되니 시랍게 냠nen도 데 퍼진 두그나 시랍게 냠nen도 데 다기 공도 치엠바나시 된담 심지게 제톱 당냠샤기 냠nen데 소지버데 소지버데 되니 데라 제가 돌리송베 추시 데라 라바스르도 딘나니 당보 추바라 따고 랑기 추바라 따고 따네 방와 랑기 추바 랑기 따네 방와 데라 랑기 추바 랑기 마타나 추비 소지 추민지시 베 데치 준도 랑기 추바라 따네 방와 야슬라니 세 당보 데치.
And then we come to verse 31, which is a set of 4 verses that are referring to the 4 dharmas explained in the sutras. And the first aspect is to abandon one's own confusion by investigating one's own confusion. The verse says, if you neglect to examine your own confusion, you may to all appearances resemble a true practitioner, but your activity will not conform to the Dharma. Constantly examining your own confusion and overcoming it, this is what Bodhisattvas do. That's all.
다레 다디 랑기 추바 랑기 따야데 지단 게좀 무시라레 데나네 따당아란소 페나 페나 우티요라 우티 우티 우티스나 리저
Uti, oh yeah.
우티 페나 난게 아니 미 조로 이나 다도 소소기 지속이 나네 미 소소 겜바로 있다야나 우티야나 겜바 간데로 지임베네 하로 에나 게투도에나 게투기 논투 도지 쇼르송와이나 기겐게딜라 아니 쮸 땡야 요레 뭐 소소기 레 쮸 땡야 요레 다 기겐 소소기 쮸 타오데 랑기 쮸 세고야지 게 좀보시다리 아니 지단 기겐다 기투 기지 조금 멤버와 지단 소소 게 nomtrute 아주 상마 소소 게라 제가 소리스 아주 소소 지고 인사에 쇼라 소소를 nomtrute 매버잖이 연구 말해 연구를 해라 된데 소소게 뒤진도 소소게 쩨는데 소소게 하고 해야 돼 깔래 쉬우래
So generally, it's extremely important to investigate one's own mistakes. And for example, when a teacher, let's say there's a teacher, and that teacher has students. So the duty of the teacher is to point out the mistakes of the students. And then the teacher, on turn, they have to make sure that they investigate their own mistakes. And we are all ordinary beings, which means that there is no one from us, among us, who does not have or make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And therefore, it is in general extremely important that on a daily basis, we check ourselves and check our own mistakes.
책네 알아줘라 쮸 여바지 알아주게 쮸의 통선은 드니 야지 땅야의 펜도요래 알아 쮸의 여바이나 야지 땅야의 펜도요래 니네 지데 야지의 펜도요래 지네 알아줘 쮸의 통마토바이나로 통마토바이나 드니 까브레 데 다다 송바나시 추비 소지 추민 GCPS야 대용야요래 대가레스나 까브레 가나도 추 제기야 봐 수수께 삼노 코고 요래때 얘네 까브레 수수 게르게 내가라 토연데 드니 수수께 디 논르 임바 하고게 고게라 니 내가 제가 노르와라 소바인데 제기 요래라 가시 땅 가지스나 말도 상마 되기로 하던데 근데 다 된데 가서 딩 엄마 람양다 버 레도 다 레멘도스나 데 람양다 버기 말해 어 된데 된데 랑게 트버데 랑게 당부 하고야 되게 좀 보시다래 뭐 디 트버데 하고 사회절라 다디 쩨데 드니 매버 속에 되게 좀 보시다래 되게 좀 나는 게 취슈지 띵하는서 지속이 나는 망부 연구요래
And therefore, that's very important to recognize and investigate one's own mistakes and faults. So first of all, that's important because when we see our own mistakes or faults, that really helps us to get better, to improve. And then secondly, what happens very often is that maybe we don't see our own mistakes or faults. Maybe we are not really able to, and then we seem or think that we are very good practitioners, but we don't see our faults. Or then maybe we do make a mistake, and we do see that wasn't maybe quite right, but we pretend as if we didn't do that. We kind of try to hide it, we try to hide that we made a mistake, or that's something that was not right with our behavior. And that's really not a good authentic way of practicing here. So it's very important to see one's own shortcomings, one's own faults or confusions, and then that we make sure that we improve, that we will not repeat these same mistakes again.
Tendo tsawe kasore tenso manchia soso soso rangi jurju tanya chirero soso soso rangi lo jone soso ke rangi jurju chitab chire ma to yang ye ngi nga zo da lo jugo yo da sene mi sin la chabra che ya jiro
Yeah.
dinde ke ja ge mare.
Most of these circumstances, situations that we might detect in ourselves are really something that then we have to try to amend to get better based on our own training and improvement. It is not something that we have to go and tell everyone that now we are getting better and doing this, we will make this better, and it's not something you have to tell others, but it's something that you are training and doing with yourself.
Tende tende soso rangi chubate cheda soso rangi chubate tonya de pe mesebe kale chumburi ngana genyama gigengi sungu yero tena shin ngara rangi ya tende mango tongu yo michi ke chua ma tensana soso ke chua de tongu mare tende soso ke michi ke chua tuenba ina ya soso ke te kaso chua de chongi to ma tongsana ta chua de kani yung soso chua de ngarangi mikde la yung de gore tongu ma dēnde sōsōki chūyōnde sōsōki rēdō rēmēndō dēnzō māngchā pēnā shūngi pēchāgi nāra pātā pēchāgi nāra nyēgi sāmnō tāngtāngde chūngdō tūndō tūmēndō nyēgi jilē dēnzō tīntā tūndō tūmēndō dēnde yābūjī tāyōnde yā tāngu nēp tūngi mēndō rā yāmana jitsōla tēne tūngido tūngi mēndō yāna pēchāla tēne tūngido tūngi mēndō tā dī nyēgi tūne tūngi mēndō na yā tāngāla chūyōn yōba 신에 하고 해야지 그러 난 주인데 통바이나 딩이게 조주때 땅 두고도 동구면도 그러 주인데 얘기 제 저버데 가서 주인 여봐 다디 양직 주어 땅야 되게 좀 보시라래 제 당부 통화 당부 마 통화도 통화 탑 지역으로 통사회제라 디 주어 탑 지역으로 이게 좀 보시라래
Generally, it's not very easy to see one's own mistakes or confusions. And this is something that both my teachers have told me, but that I also for myself have understood. Generally, if we are not being pointed out a certain mistake by somebody else, for us it's very difficult to see it. Even if it's in front of our eyes, we cannot see. So it's really necessary often that other people tell us, but it's not always so easy also to accept. And maybe we are not exactly sure if that really is a mistake, a fault or not. So the advice is to go and look in your text, to look for advices or instructions in the scriptures and seeing, okay, is my action, is my mindset in accordance with what is described here, with what the text is saying, or is it going against what's being said here? So that's one indication that can tell us whether we are actually having, a mistaken behavior or mindset or not. And then we can also, confront ourselves, our behaviors, our manners with society. That can also be a good guideline for us to actually see, okay, am I in behaving or living in accordance with that or with not with that? And of course, the best is always to take also both, to as well consider the texts, but then also the scriptures and also the societal values and so on, so that you confront yourself with these points, and then you can actually assess, am I really maybe doing something here that's actually not good. So the first step is always to try to see what we are not seeing right now, to try to become aware of it. And then the next step is to see, okay, can I change it? How can I transform this? How can I become better? That's what.
대체 드네 니버데 장주 sem반으로 니버 나와 방스 다 제라 녀모 왕기 게세 신다기 니발리나 다니 냠조베 테바치라 쇼베 칸사기 니바 메나 게세 라리엔스 티
Mhm. So the next one is the second point of advice towards behavior as is given in the sutra. So sorry, these 4 verses were not the 4 dharmas explained in the sutras. That was a mistake in the translation, but the 4 conducts of explained in the sutra. So the second one is in verse 32. It's about not criticizing bodhisattvas. So we will read the verse. If impelled by your own defilements, you talk about the shortcomings of other bodhisattvas, this will damage only yourself. So refraining from commenting on the flaws of others who have embarked on the path of the great vehicle, this is what bodhisattvas do.
다 제다 장주 sem바 제다 알아서 택바칠 첨부 라 쇼비기 강사에는 장주 sem바 지인 거래요. 장주 sem바 인사의 쇼고라 장주 sem바 탐비 지번 말에 소지 장주 sem바를 파파 장주 sem바 요래 다 간다 돈바 요사 장주 sem베게 돈바 요상이 마치야 또 장주 sem바 텔라 샤고로 얘는 장주 sem베 돈바 용게 장주 게셈킹게 미수도 수인세야지 가나서 셰나 셰싱이 말해
Mhm.
아 라고도 디나니 기회신이 또 제, 장주 sem바 파바든서 수인도 수인스네 가나서 속에 셰싱이 말했대 얘나야 다직 소소기 장주 sem바 임바 제 임바 하고나로 먹고나로 지속이 나라 고나 장주 sem바 임바 제 기회신이 담바게 되라야 원진 사회 쇼고라 다 대자요지라 제 님발라 소고라 야든서 야보시라요 말이야.
So generally, when we speak about a bodhisattva, that's somebody who has entered the Mahayana vehicle. And there are 2 different types of bodhisattvas. There are the noble bodhisattvas, the noble beings, bodhisattvas, and then there are the ordinary practicing bodhisattvas. And generally, as soon as when somebody takes the bodhisattva vows, then that person automatically becomes a bodhisattva. And of course, we cannot surely know who is a bodhisattva and who's not, who has taken the vows, who hasn't, who is a noble bodhisattva, who's not. And especially, among so-called virtuous friends, who is a bodhisattva, noble being or not, we cannot really know that. Maybe even in society, there can be so-called virtuous friends acknowledged in society. And if we don't like these acknowledged, teachers or something, we have no idea, are they bodhisattvas, are they not? We just cannot tell. And we should never criticize anyone but just because we don't like them or whatever reason. We shouldn't criticize because we don't really know who is a bodhisattva and who's not. That's all.
제단계 제 장주 sem바 따위지나 심진 시행게 되라야 저버 자면 하수 땡기래 그러
Mhm.
에야 까브레 오나부츠 오네 전에게 제 가서 그래 소소게 란시 근데 매바 있나요 그러 년백의 넘버 매바 있나요 전주 sem바 잠바다 니제게 다니 인게 소소게 줄라지 가서 그래 지 세상의 넘버 매바 있나요 야직 조와 심지 탐지 뚫려야게 쳐도 세상의 넘버라요 용 근데 용기 요래 로
Mhm.
근데 진에 심지가 들은 진게 요래 가시 가시 소소게 지가 가고 어음 근데 넘버 템버 좀 많이 벌어 뭐게 레다 멜람 기기엔 게로 신경 장주선 게 몰람 직 망고답네 tsedelaya inju jodo yin bala ngege kangso ne chik dege ka shidangi namba ten shaba dende me ngone shidangi suldo ane jodo nange kurangi choba dege ngone jodo nang dingi dendege ya rikshin yangchi yungu yore ta chikdo je ngege namba tengi yinbe kejage mare kurangi ngone ke dende lega naya je yoro dende ramin nazo yungu yore dende ta chikdo nga kurangi choba de haku yes dende waso ho janju sima maresne ta joya la soba dende zane nga nazo karo xie xingke mare kurangi ngyoge leda myolam kari tabi yaba nga nazo xingyo mare dende nga nazo susu jivu jizoge nala ya da ka tanya la soba dende mangbuchi yungu ware de lama dende ke ngone dane kashi ngona ngyoge molam ke leda topge dende nangyo yore kashi ngone namba ke tsodo dende ten nangyo yore dende 제 장주 선반 담임 나zo 된저게 줘봐 된저랑 나zo 카지 땅 샤바이나 때 되게 제소 다네 이 미만치 다 소소게 레징게 라마지나야 딜라마 때메도 된저 카당 와기 겐게네 때 딘데기 니발라 소바 타바타 타지신바 통이 게사베 다 제와 여바이나 딜라마도 제와 제 토비아게 네 레도 소소게 바도 줘야네 때 딘데기 지금 뭐 연구열이라
So.
얘네 된속에 된속 하나 제가 람 가서 장교 선배께 줘봐대 지딜레 대비게 남타세 대인들 하나 타지도 셰싱인 말에 대인들 는 당념게 가서 샤고에 계신 보시라.
And bodhisattvas, they manifest for the benefit of beings with all different kinds of behavior. Sometimes, for a temporary purpose, they might appear temporarily with some kind of negative, bad behavior because they are out of their compassion and loving kindness. They are taking on a behavior or an appearance that is maybe wrathful, angry, or where we would say they are behaving badly or something like that. And they're doing that actually to tame sentient beings. And some other times, a bodhisattva manifests in a really, angry form, in an angry, wrathful way because of their previous aspirations and karmic seeds that they have planted for their bodhisattva activity. So there can be these two different ways how actually bodhisattvas can appear in really unlikely manners. And then we say, oh, I know this person cannot be a bodhisattva. I have seen how they behave. But we can really not be sure. We can really never actually know what kind of karma and aspirations are behind somebody's behavior or attitude or whatever it is. We really cannot be sure. And there is, especially today in society, with social media and all that stuff, there is so much just insulting and criticizing everyone and everything just all the time. But we don't know how or why somebody does what they do. Maybe there's something behind that behavior that's connected to noble aspirations and noble karmic seeds and so on and so forth, that when we are actually criticizing a bodhisattva, that can have a lot of negative consequences. For example, that we are creating obstacles for ourselves and for the activity of that bodhisattva, and that we can actually inhibit creating and having an auspicious connection with this bodhisattva. So there can be so many shortcomings of criticizing a bodhisattva, and the conducts, the ways of behaving and manifesting of bodhisattvas is really beyond any our imagination. We absolutely cannot imagine. It's beyond any worldly concept. So the best thing is to just, when you're irritated by something like that you place it in equanimity. That you place it in equanimity.
되게 장심지 니바 마오방와 세트들 다 니바데 숨바데 짐다게 침라 잡고 방와 니고왕기 편주 주신 두성근배 자와 냠줄 자시 침도 짐다 지남로 잡고 방와 갸슬라네 인생에 대송을
And then the third conduct is avoiding attachment to benefactors. It's verse 33. Rewards and praise give rise to quarreling, which will get in the way. Which will get in the way of your devotion to learning, reflecting, and meditating. So letting go of attachment to the homes of friends, relatives, and sponsors. This is what Bodhisattvas do.
레레 다치난디 다칸소리 짐다 게 침라 잡고 방와도 만 지하던서 제 간도 긴드링 기초적이 나와디 또 숙심부 연구 요래라
Hindun lalaso.
가서 그 공부하기 주소라고 나와던서 제 자외기 메시지 나와디 또 연구 요래 얘나 지된 펼쳐라 때 가서 연구 요니 싫어 시행이면서 디인도 저 이나야 짐다디 미세 강시데 딜레장 지그 자시다 아니 자시기 침도다 또 딘데든지 자자자 뭐침 가서 상만의 연구를
Mm.
디인도 다지가 되지 소소기 droge 침다래 드네 딘데게 준호당 니당 쿠데라 소바게 친도 편주 쯧바치야 된소 네 방고레스 해기게들이 다디 주소 되게 지게 되게 주소데 많죠 제가 긴드기 주소게 나와 용야로 긴드는다 대 긴드는 라서에라 타치도 남백이 게다 주소 타위 주소 말에 거 출로 간데기 주소게 나와데 연구를 근데 디나 쇼충부도 연구 다디 제가 지나물어지라 펜도 가서 한 먹을 때는 또 많지 다 더우더우리
So generally, this is a verse of giving up attachment to especially sponsors and what sponsors can give to a religious community. So this verse, Rinpoche says, I'm not sure how beneficial it is for you, how helpful it is, because this is something that mainly happens within religious communities, for especially such as the communities of a sangha of monks or nuns. It's maybe not so relevant for lay people because the community of a sangha, whether we are in different religions, we find that they are depending on donations, on sponsors. So this verse is especially talking about letting go of attachment towards these sponsors, and whether they are, sponsoring whatever they are giving. Sometimes they are giving maybe buildings, or they are giving wealth, property, things like that. So this is something that has to be given up. But again, this verse is perhaps more relevant for people part of monastic communities. That's what.
야 저진의 가르스나 배나 침 빵네 다 침빵네 소소기 출한 제기 삼백에 samno kherje tini ta ne wimba tinzola nyamne nang debe kap tewala ta ta chimre tinzo ke ta tinzo ki ya kabre se re sunyam tinzola ya tini yang ti kona zo ke ti pyugiro sunyam pyo la soba ta chowe ki jirwa pyo la soba tinzo nang gore tin nambe kapso ya dela shen so na 야 지 냠렌 데라야 발시 차고 되는 데가 소 데이터기 냠렌 봐 다타지도 자와 냠 자와 다 디나신 게 주마 들이 인 네바오 말다 주바 수로지네 지데 포냐 수로지네 된데기 발치 중메시바 말에 된데기 쟁가 용기래 들이 데라야 지 편수 쯧바다 대니 대 짐달라 소버기 니바다 꿀데라 소버 된속에 와라 마셔봐 로 된속에 차선 방향 되게 좀 보시라래
And again, actually, it can be that we say, "Oh, I want to give up my worldly life. I want to dedicate myself to the Dharma," and then we retreat to some solitary practice place where we depend, because we have no possessions ourselves. We are depending on the alms that we go for alm begging, and maybe then there are families around that support us with food, with the necessities for living, things like that. And it can become an obstacle, donations and so forth. It can really become an obstacle if we start to become attached towards these benefactors and towards these offerings, donations. And this can happen to anyone. We don't need to be a monastic sangha member. We can also be lay practitioners. And this can happen, if we go into such a circumstance, if we make such a decision where we are depending really on the alms, on the donations of lay families. And therefore it's saying to be very heedful and mindful of that, to not start quarreling and looking for reward and for the affection for certain benefactors, or maybe you are having a little strife with fellow practitioners, trying to quarrel with them and trying to get more than the others, whatever things one might do for getting the favor of the donors and donations. So to be aware and not fall into that trap. And in other words, to give up attachment, the mind of attachment. That's all.
Nyama the lomaji yore inchi lomaji re ro. Kurang tsamla drogo shine tsamla chen bare tsamla chen jinda to soro. Tsamla dro jindagi da se de dangbu koro ko jindagi tunjin zumpu jine dene de loma de la se de dene kuiro kunjuro de ta ko tsamla de da rechula dreams ro. Dene ko tsamla de dene de nindam gi jimda den so ge se de gu de che de kurang de la dona shu chira dronde jela de dream do jine jimda tan lomani porra zeba jungsre. Zeba june ritu dream ya de pasha lone lesre.
In the past, there was a Western practitioner who went in some kind of solitary remote place to do a retreat, and before leaving he had found a sponsor, and that sponsor gave him plenty of things, food and provisions and clothes for him to be there. And then when he went there, also people over time in the area, families in the area started to support him with necessities. And at some point he started to quarrel with the sponsors and to argue, "Oh, that what you gave me last time, that wasn't okay." He started having requests and demands on what was being given, and they started to get into a fight, and then eventually he left. So yeah.
근데 저저 무슨 내가 전부 지래서 근데 갑자기 근저 다 근데 tre버래 뭐음발아 양안 줄에 근데 tre시바야래 근데 와서다 근데 진다다 근저기 돌아야 자선 방고에 되게 좀 뭐시라서 다 남된더러.
So this is really an important advice, because that happens, and it can happen also to us. So this is the important advice on giving up attachment towards sponsors.
근데 주민직 나와 방어스 딜라 주민직의 신선 투조신 교회세지 조조냠주로 대체 신지에도 명의 최소 방어겠을라리 인세야.
And then the fourth advice is to refrain from harsh words. Verse 34, other people are upset by harsh words, and these also impair the Bodhisattva's own way of life. So ceasing to utter harsh words that upset others, this is what Bodhisattvas do.
드네 데르다 장주선바다 소소게 말한소디 장주선베게 돈바 슈 Chöpala lap nyamlen yang kanang kansam je. Tende je sawe shugula. Ngaranzo ta chöpa de la pe sabcha nanggoya te kye shumbo shira re rawa. Nyamlen nang sawe na samsa chöpa chiki ya dhamin hazo la soba cheba ina. Ani soso chubo mayin je soge nang la ya tuya la soba yungo re. Tinani chöpa chik de kasi na zumi tsik shaya den so re rawa. Tende ta chiki tende ta ngaranzo tsik zubu dawa kare ina tsik zubu dawa ina re je soge nang la chik 미튠베 츠도 라비아 된속의 리기나야 자니 남닝이 말해 셰야닝이 말해 로 디소소게 직속게 츠든속이 덴바이나야 지소를 두고도나 된소 시라 셰야닝이 말해.
So generally, maybe we have taken the Bodhisattva vows, maybe we have or we are training in the Bodhisattva conduct. We are also practicing a little bit. And that if that's the case, then we really have to be very aware of our conduct, of our behavior. So we are practicing that path, and then let's say we just behave in whatever kind of way, for example, we start using harsh words in our daily life, and that's not okay. So that's not part of the conduct that's desirable, that is wholesome, even if we are maybe, even if there is a point of truth in our words, if we convey them in such a manner that we really stir up the whole environment and society, then we should not use those kind of words. So?
데인데 ngaran suchi tsogin nala tang yege pena rupana deba yin so ta tukan lo sum de na ta lo du deba ina kanda ngagi rupana ten sta de ngar chu mangbo ni akasa je nyen sawa yin ani shung dunzo mangche lobjong je sawa yin ta rupana la so bola tene ta nga mangbo chi ko wang long tre sum rane ta nyamne dunzo ya lo du den 다 로카제 냠는 지역에는 진짜 제차인 세네 다 수수기 강한 지역에 다 되게 요래 로 되네 얘기 시에서도 상마 덴바 레스네 지직 직접 비주 다야라고다 저바 지금 지 마지바 된저 지야라 소바 근데 지기레스 디카스나 띵하게 톱당에 삼네 근데 지 삼노다 바이는 노버리
Maybe we feel like we have, no, not we feel, let's say, for example, we were in retreat, we have done 3 or 6 years in retreat, we have listened to a lot of Dharma teachings, we have studied a lot of Dharma texts, we have done a lot of Dharma practice, we have received a lot of empowerments and oral transmissions and explanations, and really maybe for a really long time, even 6 years or 3 years. And well, that's okay, whatever experience we have made, but maybe we start to think, okay, whatever I want to say, I can say, because in my words, in my experience, there's a truth. Like I know that I'm what I feel, what I see, and what I think, that's true because of my experience there. So then I feel like I have the right to behave in whatever way, to use whatever words I please, because that's my right, because I have done all of those years of practice and things like that. If we think like that, if we do that and think like that, that's actually a mistake. That's just mistaken. That's just wrong.
대인데 제 미든zor라 제가 소속이 가지 신경이나야 책이나 츠츠불라서보다 이 소속이 야보이나야 내가 츠츠불라서보다 미텐베게 줘봐 제소바이나 지소 추고요래 이 소속 검냠렘 바인 라드 아추 검냠렘 바스나다 스나야 되게 추바인 랍체 카게 된데 제샤바이나 이 소속이 제샤바다 소속이 랍데바니 퉁기 말와 Tende so te maten so jela te ngonege ta so so nyamlen ba yin labje chuba yin labje Chöpa dungzo shena tuya rawa ta, shen dungzo la ya chik, susu ina ya zibu matong ya dinde rawa, ta dinde la sobe ki lega je shaba ina, tama dila, susu nyenpa toya chik ta, susu ka sore, tamje dinde, ta chik gyangchu senpe ki chöpa da nyenpa sen nata, khare nata, ta susu, ta chik yabu chigi yin samba ina, di norbari, susu ma longya ki juto chagu yore.
Therefore, no matter how much we have learned or practiced, if then we take that as a sort of excuse to behave badly or to use harsh words, to really agitate or create conflicts within our environment, the society, whatever, wherever it is, and thinking that I have the right to do so because I'm a practitioner, then that's really not in accord at all with your path of conduct and practice. So it's really not okay to do that and to see yourself as being really cool, really advanced, and therefore you have the right to create conflict in society and to create disagreements, disharmony between whatever environment you're in. That's actually just wrong. You are not, you might even think that you are doing good, but that's not, if that's the outcome, that you use harsh words, that you behave badly, creating conflict and so on in your environment, then that actually is a reason for for downfall, for not progressing but actually regressing, degressing.
니 소소기 쥐어봐대나 동마로 시간에 쉬어봐던 소소기.
Yes, so actually what you say you are and your behavior, like you say you are a practitioner, but your behavior does not fit, does not match what you're saying you are.
니 되게 갱지네. 니 소소 냠내 인 같이 라바이나 냠내 바도 차기요.
So then you are not really becoming what you say you are, and you're not really a real practitioner if you do that.
가브레 간주 지속이 나가. 배나 너 소소기는 야부인 제바 인상고 요래되나 지속이 나라 소소 민연슈데랑 레기요라.
Oh.
니 소소 강 제바데 녜바랑라 레야딘데 연구요래.
So sometimes there is really a huge contradiction between what you think you did and how the outcome is. So you think your intention is, I did well, the action I did was a good one, but actually the impact is so dramatic for your environment and the society that actually you kind of fall into the category of the worst people.
니 디차연데 tene da lo pamya ki chu karago judo de didilegiro inge yamne jeba yende jeba na shi soso ge rewa jeba na shi soso mitun zoge da nyen shu da do shu de la tende ta wende go so tene yan lo da dinde de ka soso ge da je tang go ya de ge chung bore dinde go so jeba la zo da je tang go ya de ge chung bore dinde kabre samnoing yaboina ya suzuki cheba de bijitang ma cause labdan de ya lameshi jedan ya jima shi songba ina ya jiso thuya gi chuindi tenzo la sabne ta tsitsubu ina ya kayana tenzo la sabsam na ko ya de kechum bushitare ne dege sumchu sobshi pateje.
So that would become a cause, for being also for huge sadness or in yourself. You feel like, oh, I've practiced, I've carried those hopes, but now they are society seeing me as, like, one of the worst people. So at that time, you should really check your own behavior again and be very mindful of how you convey certain things that you want to convey, with what wording, with what actions. Be very mindful and check your behavior for faults. And then that was verse 34. Yeah.
데 가야스나 나랑 주 지소 안주 미도 데 시나 마시나 다 로충부 인식으로 알아서 또 망치들의 세딩에 망치 로충부 장장 해셔로 제가 먼저 삼아 로충부 인데 알아서 내가 내다 삼삼 보고도 여래.
You know, it's very funny because most of us we are adults, and still our behavior equals the behavior of children very often.
가브리 라마 심바체로 때 라윈 라마 심바체 때네 되게 제진에 보고도이나 담보 신경 말에 간주 모주 랍셔 랍네 때네 다 되게 다 보고 즈모제 마시네 간주 모주 칸네가 덴세 신세도 좀 바시셔고요 셰네 때네 타마 소소게 셰바디 논브리인 버스 라운드 제랑 아주 셈바 두고요 라보고 된수
Really. You know, sometimes we are really like children also in the sense that we don't know how to say something, and then we just say it and it just comes out in whatever way, and it creates a huge, you know, upheaval or conflict. If you look at children don't necessarily know how to phrase things, or maybe they don't even know how to play well, and then they create a huge mess, and whatever comes out, and then when you tell them, hey, that wasn't right, you shouldn't have done it like that, and then they get really upset. So that's how we also do it often as adults.
근데 대체라데 보고도이나다 셴에다 즉 쮸바라 랍고로 보고데 대체나 야고 말했으네 대체는 데라 사노다네 대신에 보고 장고로 대나시 말아서 미 총보이나야 장야 되게 좀 보시라리.
And then we train children, we educate them, we tell them, hey, listen, when you want to do that, then you have to do it in this and that way. And then it will, you know, that's how you should behave with that circumstance. And that's how we train, we educate the children. But this is something that not only the children need, we have to do it with ourselves as well, even when we are adults.
다 니슈장은 버티면서요. 뉴몬 본수도 라바스. 뉴몬 겁나 뉴 님비도 가वे 전시 지우 님비 순송 네 차수 님모 당부체마다 보좀 제바께서라네스.
And then verse 35, which is about giving up mental afflictions. When defilements have become habitual, it is difficult to rectify them with remedies. So, eliminating defilements like greed as soon as they arise, by means of the guardians, mindfulness, and clear knowledge, armed with their antidotes, this is what Bodhisattvas do.
다 되게 까네데 템바의 시신의 송고래라. 근데 템바 시신데 알아서 니마니 니마 전시라 티텐 거에 계시 모시라래. 때나니 또다 템바의 시신이가래. 때네 시라메 발라 네 템바 주부기 팽기요 말에 템바 여바탐 시신데 매 바이나 팽기요 말에 때인데 시신의 템바 니 송도 제네 응아란소게 메시게 나라 삼로 컨데직 답변아 내가 이날에 저바 이날에 가르기 초소 저바 이나 지금 미튼 비초라 저바이나 띵할 안수기 럽자 겨질라레 나라 가르침 바데 양자야 제네 드네 디시신게 소데가 돈이 된 람라 랍고야 람도 켈고야 전소 나고야 계신 보시라리.
So, this verse is really pointing out how important it is to cultivate both mindfulness and clear knowledge. Here it says in the English, which sometimes is also translated as a carefulness. So mindfulness and carefulness, or clear knowledge here in the text. So both of these aspects are very important on a day-to-day basis. They have to be practiced in union. It's not helpful to just have one of these two aspects. And these two are important really in whatever we do in our daily life, in our behavior, in our actions, in our work. And when we notice that we lose that awareness, that mindfulness, that carefulness, that then we have to look, you know, back into this text and look at the instructions. Okay, how did I miss the point? And then bring it back onto the path again, you know, then start again, bringing the qualities of mindfulness and clear knowledge, wakefulness, carefulness into your life.
Dinala disondoa nyumo gomna nyembo dokaves ne. Ra ti nyumo gomna nyembo dokaves ate dinane ta nyumo dambu kia gi judo de kochi sum sawe chela tini tela rim kale kale tela komsona tini nyembo de dokawo ti chik chagirwa.
And it's also saying at the beginning of the verse that once we have started, or once we have generated afflictions, if we just, continue to let them work out and operate, then we will start to become more and more habituated with these patterns of behavior based on our afflictions. And then it becomes extremely difficult to rectify them with any kind of remedy.
Pena ranzo kita pena lega ro cha sumena lega tangbu lega khora 지 lega ro cha sume tito ki lega degi teni ti yabu remendus tangbu lega ti khora hago bachi lega de yabu remeba e lega yabu mare ena ya tadi male rang le res chine ti lega de lebachi 티 레가 디 레서의 쇼골라 티 레가 데 치카소레 야부 멘서의 쇼골라 티 레가 데게 소소 야부 임베게 데게 아니에 가소레 야부 임베게 당아서 직주 상보도 이나야 티 냠벌 줄도야게 젠야 지기레 젠 제베캅소 나라소게 데티 지기 여바야 하고의 신도야 딘데야 딘데 용시기레 로 데인드드니 가소레 대제라 드니 소소게 다 당보지 빵고 삼바이나야 빵투베 가레 가보레 가스나 더블 레가 딜레 레가 레차요시라다 검도레 검서시라다 게싱에 레가기 게인데 망부지 레차베나 육 초조스네 용마로 근데 라소베게다 주지 망부지 용고 데인도 당보네 딜레가데 지금 기 당보네 디 전바데 시신 지 여버 삼지기 팬도 요 말에 라렌데 따고 해야 돼 계신 보시다. 어? 야무나 지기 민스야 로도.
Sometimes, for example, this is like when there is something we have to do, a job or something, we know, okay, we first accepted that, then we go like, I'm not sure if that was such a good idea, maybe this is not a good kind of work, but then we feel like we have no choice, so we do it, then we start, once we are in it and we're finishing, we get on new tasks in that job, and then sort of we are just in it and we don't manage to get out or to change anything, even though at the beginning we started with the knowledge or the idea that that wasn't exactly right, what we wanted, what we are doing here, what we accepted to do. And then it can become very difficult to get out of it. And that's a little bit like with the afflictions. So once we start, rolling with them, then it will just increase and increase and become more and more difficult to get out. So therefore, it says here, it is very important to have mindfulness and clear knowledge, carefulness, but it's not good to only think about it, but to really put it into practice. And if you can, to avoid anything from the beginning where this is not healthy, this is not wholesome, and just to not even start, even though later I will stop it anyways. But better is not to even start.
디레. 데인데 다 딘데게 나도 타슈도레 지오로 메시게 나라 나라서 쳐서 충사 망보지 딘데로 내당라 레용고레 딘레용데고서 오늘 전바의 시신 여버점지 마인바로 전바의 시신기 꿀네 타주난 거야 계속 뭐지 타주대 상벽에 돌아난 거야 계속
And these things, they will happen, whether it's with small issues or big issues, these, for sure, we are going to have such circumstances, such situations. And in that case, we should use mindfulness and carefulness as really important sort of inspirations, and giving us a strong reminder to be very aware and very careful, but then also to really decide, not just to leave it in your mind and not act upon them, but to really use mindfulness and carefulness to implement it into your actions, into your daily life. That's all.
Tene tsiki churu bote tenshi tenpe shendun dhubba la labas. Dona gangdo chulam cheche jan rangi simchen nekab chinda shi chundu tenda shi shin tenpa yi shendun dhubba gyasi la le yin sine. Tati sumchu suru bote che.
Verse 36, which is about accomplishing the benefit of others. Let's read verse 36 in a nutshell. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, exploring the state of your mind with unceasing mindfulness and clear knowledge, and gauging your activity to the well-being of others. This is what Bodhisattvas do.
Yendo drenpa da shi shin de drenpa da shi shin la de taki gongdo shoba na shin ngaran so shenpa samshiki pengi mare lalin to targo kore. De ngaran so da che ngaran so sem nangdo pina ngaran so sem nangdo pa kha lo ne ta ne che nyema suzo gewa kasore nangba mayin bin ne ka ro gewa maji bin ne ka so sem kan ritu che sem shitangi chola toki sem che sangbu chola to sem de ken yemba la tredo ki kandir chi la tredo sem kandir chi la nedang kandir ro chi la to sine samma chi tang chusho la le ne tene sem de kandir chi juwa to so sem de la yar chi kazi chi chen to tende ya samma chi tang tende negab tang de kazi yar chi chen da sangcho kazi cha da nyencho kazi cha da tende tene sangcho ki tola legwa tong de ta sangbu te ta tenso man cha de chöpa densu tenpa da sheshen la teni chungpa shadare, tenyondu da denzo la tenne ta tali ngeki tuyda namba kundu tenpa da sheshen rang la tenne te simjen ki shendun ki chedo te janju sembe ki lam laba denzo manche te shendun ki chedo lagu yore te shendun chubya ta denzo la yasamno lani tarkuya kye chungpa re sungko re teki.
Therefore it is not enough to just think about being mindful or being careful or alert, awake, but to really put that into practice. That's always the most important thing. So to really transform your mind, to change the direction of your mind, to look and go into direction of mindful alertness, of carefulness. And if you think about how your life was when you were not before you became a Buddhist, when you were not maybe particularly focused on accumulating virtue, on doing actively, consciously, mindfully doing purposefully good things, then how was your life? How was it going towards a positive, wholesome direction? How did you deal with negative circumstances? And since you have joined, since you are on a spiritual path, then has your mind improved or has it not improved? How much has it evolved towards positive circumstances, positive states of mind, and so on and so forth? Or has it evolved towards more negative states? And if you see that there has been a positive evolution also, that there have been positive improvements, then you should know that they are coming from basically mindfulness and clear knowledge, or carefulness, as based on how we translate the second aspect. So now this verse is telling you this, that these are really the most fundamental elements that then you take onto the path that you're on right now, the path towards Buddhahood, where it's about mainly bringing forth, working, manifesting the benefit of all beings. So this verse is saying, now do that. Focus on how important it is to bring your mindfulness and your clear knowledge, your carefulness onto the path towards enlightenment for the benefit of all beings.
라서 다디 조 되게 젬바다 시생이고는 신든 줍스데 겁소 조 신든 줍루 주당게 골라 조 숨고리라 대 당보 신든 마줍게 공라 당보 랑이 신든 주투비야게 안 내당 레도 레면도 대라 다지당 가싱 알아서 제가 퇴바다 삼바 싫어라서 버티네 강한 간삼지다 오늘 신들 제나야 다 제외바지다 제나야 초바라고 지 종수나 대 신들 제바이나야 내가 아 신들 제 탑let 케베게 돈이 신들 이 많이 봐 그러 대 신들 제바이나 오늘 탑let 케베게 돈이 신들 제거야 돼 개좀 보시라래 때문에 탑let 마켓으나 신든데야 신든가 또또 네바야 요말 때도 탑let 케베게 돈이 신든 대야 탑let 케버스도 그냥 말 숑레 종데베게 점 숑니 숑데버든서 제 투성 공수를 때네 중심에 들을 때네 점버든서 야구야다 때네 난단데서 시신 저 탑let 때네 난거야다 저 신든 진로 지나기 거다래 점버의 시신 ngal susu ki tusam gonsum shung la shung re ta gomba re ta la subo tusam jeba la ten ne jong bara te jong ne susu la chik rang duen tu chi nyamne yabu chi chaba chi ta susu shin la pen tobo la susu la gaa kuja me wala shin duen drupu kuja na shin duen drupu ya kali khabu re te susu la tangbo rang duen tu chi drup goya tusam gomsum ki nyamne tusam wa lewa drup chi 다 신된 제보나 신된 제 부부즈문나 신된 제보나 뭐 많이 벌어 오늘 전에게 자외 닌제다 잠버세메 봐 근데게 돌아 드니 탑 케베게 돈이 신된 제보야 계셔물 탑 케버스나 잼바다 시신 땡도 탑레 케버 로마 두베 케버 로마의 주시에 단계 시루시다 단족의 돈이 시고리 뭐도 양지 시에 먹어야 된도 시에 고야 된도 마시에 된지로지는 신된 두부 말어 So
it's actually saying one of the key points of this verse is that bringing forth the benefit of others really relies on these qualities of mindfulness and clear knowledge. And there has to be a whole process before we are really able to benefit others. So actually, you first have to check that you are actually working yourself on becoming fit for benefiting others. So first you're actually realizing your own benefit so that then you can benefit others. What does it mean to realize your own benefit? It means that you have as your focus, of course, accomplishing the well-being of others, and that you train in the three aspects of study, meditation, and contemplation. So once you have gone through all these stages of study, contemplation, and meditation, achieve the wisdom that comes out of these stages, then you're actually really well equipped with the skillful means and the wisdom that is necessary to really benefit others. You know, when we say benefiting others, we are not talking about just like innocently and naively setting out and now we're going to help everyone, just like a child. That's not what benefiting others is. So benefiting others really requires a huge toolkit of skillful means and wisdom and incredible amount of compassion and loving kindness that we have to develop, based on the process of study, contemplation, and meditation. And in that process, we are training both in mindfulness and clear knowledge. So these are then at the root qualities that we then need when we really want to skillfully benefit others. Lasso.
Tini 제 tenzo yunde mena tini 제 shikari shegu gore shegu mara tiya shingi maro.
Yeah. And if we don't have those qualities, it becomes very difficult to really know what to say to someone. You know, we want to help, we want to be of benefit, but we don't really know what to say, what not to say. So we need these qualities to really know how to benefit.
Tata na sunju sobden batin so. Tetar tang hongwa tere, tetar zunbi drubi kiawa na tayi drubi tunga sawi chi che kosan number tabi shira chi chanchung hongwa kiasi lale ins. Ta digi hongwa tenpare.
And then now we are at the verse 37, which is the dedication. Dedicating to awakening the wholesome that has arisen through these endeavors with the insight of the purity of the three spheres, with a view to eliminating the suffering of the countless living beings. This is what Bodhisattvas do.
Aso ta digi hongwa te tenpare, ti hongwa nanglu nadan de zo tenre songdowa. Tayi drubi tunga saji chir, korso nam saji chir, korso namba tabi shira chi chanchung hongwa kiasi lale ins. Then sozo shirab tan tenpe toni molam je tomna, tene korso mamibe kune rowa simje tamje donga la trawe ki molam trawa jamna yak shure. Te dende jamma tuba ina rowa simje tamje donga dan trawa showo sambe ki kandar. Da dende zo rowa simje tamje la dende migne. Jiga shirab jise masum sim matumba ina ya, da dende molam jago ya te kechub shirares.
So the dedication is a very important point, of course, where we are dedicating all wholesome imprints for the benefit of all beings. So the best dedication is, of course, when we can dedicate, make this aspiration of the dedication on the basis of wisdom that we ourselves have developed. So here the verse is saying to dedicate on the basis of the insight of the purity of the three spheres, and dedicating on that with that wisdom, the positive deeds and imprints for all sentient beings, so that they themselves may be free from suffering. That's the best dedication. And if that is not possible, then at least dedicating with our, conceptual mind, whatever understanding we have, to dedicate the virtue for the benefit of all beings, so that they may be free from suffering. So in essence, the nutshell is we dedicate the virtue for focusing on all sentient beings, so that they may be free from suffering. That's all.
So then digi sunju sobden bati drubi simbache.
So that concludes verse 37.
Di shungzang gobe jumsen degi da sikshi tererwa. Doju dunju namli songbi dun damba namji songi jirani gyasi namji lali sumju dun gyasi lamla lup dun doku songba nanshi. Da di pesha zang gobe jumsen de sula resi de gopso chi kansa rikchin kashi janju senbegi nyamle ki lamla lobar dungi tenzo ki rigla gobe yin. Tenya chik shung cha chenpo chunju dawo tang chik shung shindala soba tenzo lobchung chik tusu yorongbo tang matobe ina ya chik shung chungchung tusu tongdong ka nara lobchu nam tobe ya dawo. Che to teni kongi ani shung de i sanji ki li sung shepe ki ani to chik sanji ki sung shepe ki to tena shiki jude tena shiki tenju la soba ki ani kasa shidela shane de gazlane de zamzaba ins ne sung.
So then the next verse is about the reason for compiling this text. It says, emulating the commentaries of noble masters on the interpretation of the teachings in the sutras, tantras, and shastras, I have compiled these 37 verses on what Bodhisattvas do for those who wish to practice the Bodhisattva path. So why did the author compose this text? It is for those individuals who want to train in the Bodhisattva practice, who wish to train in the Bodhisattva practice, and who maybe do not have time to look at other more vast and extensive texts. So this is a text that allows these individuals to, in a relatively short amount of time, have instructions on how to train on the Bodhisattva path. And he also says that he composed this text basing himself on the sutras of the Buddha, on the tantras, and on the shastras, which means the commentaries.
Tene de jema de lale trume do tembare. Shung trume do tembare.
Lasso.
De la tene lo trume she jamba chung we she keba gebe. Devjur ma chi te do da tambe song la tembe she kyase lale trume labar sem sine tegi shung trume do tembare.
And the next verse shows that this work is accurate, that it is not a mistaken text with mistakes. So he's saying here, I am a person of modest intelligence and little education. So this is not a poetic work that will appeal to scholars. However, since I have drawn on the sutras and the commentaries of illustrious masters, I believe that this work accurately describes what Bodhisattvas do.
E gyase lale trume te shung gyase lale ki shung de trume yinba te kala chung rasa do chobu che sung la tenpa ki ma yinba ra sung zamlam tenpa ma yinba tangbu sung tanzu giwe shinyi la tene tueba che tene te chela dege tola ya samba che ne chondo che tara nyamne che gomba la sobo la tene ni kong 또 제바보데 토미 무주 토미레 무주 토미스 게 줄아야 이시 근데 통용도 다 되게 가서 돈도 마소나 게스라네 순수도마 제바인데 데 콩라 데 숑데 가서 냠렌데 제 렉처마도 출백의 차다 주연기 차대 중요 말에 공기 줄
Lasso.
얘들 데 마종도 공기 줄라 강 총바তে서 삼제 제라마신이 계획 담 신이 담발했던 정보지래라 쉬운게 시든서 시샤스데 숑든서 산제가 된 주든서 샤바레 데인데 줄라 총바대야 지공의 슈 드셔베게 숑데 그 남준 숑다 자기 말에 냠눈진기 숑을 차대 그러라 냠랭게 숑 차대 얘도 된서 냠랭도 상마를 준다 추어자니 매버에 되는 신기 숑 쿠란데야 되는데 주메 힌스네 공부 유스 송어래.
So why is this not a mistaken text? Why are there no errors in this text? Because the author did not just himself, read some sutras and then start writing a text, but actually he first studied. He studied from his virtuous spiritual friends. Then he contemplated, and then he also brought his knowledge and contemplation into meditation. So the author, we know it's Ngulchutogme Zangpo, and he really generated the wisdom that is then portrayed in this work in himself through these different steps of his path, which he all went through. And because of that, because this is a text that has come out of his own experience, of his own wisdom and practical experience based on study, contemplation, and meditation, this is a text without mistakes, without faults. And his insights, therefore, are based on the learning from his spiritual friends, and they are also based on the scriptures. And on top of that, this is an experiential text. So that, therefore, it is free from faults. Lasso.
Tadi susuri, Yuanjang seba, Yuanjang sejo pa lapche nam, Yuanjang ge sejo pa lapche nam, Lomen tate ting pa kawe shir, Galda matre la su nipe so, Tamba nam ju sopa zeto so sayagi, Tadi ki susu ki tsiri.
And then the next verse is sort of it's like he's asking us to be patient with the author in case he might have made any mistakes or things like that, to sort of be patient with him. And he says, however, for somebody of little intelligence like myself, it is difficult to grasp the great scope of bodhisattva practice. So I beg the noble masters to overlook this work's shortcomings, like inconsistencies, non sequiturs, and such like.
Tini ta shung di ki ngwa dire, nga deli chungwe kiwe chowa kuntu nam kunzu jang sim, tunda kunzu jang chu sim choki sidan shewe tala minepe, chenre si kun te ta tsombra sho sayaki. Ta di ta shung di ki ngwa de che.
And the next verse is the dedication of the whole text. It says, may any wholesomeness that this work engenders through the supreme relative and absolute bodhicitta prevent all beings from residing in the extreme of the cycle of samsaric existence, nor in that of peace, like the protector Chenrezi.
Ta di ki tangpo chujo ki kaosu chinen se la choba choba re. Tini chinen se ki chanchu senpa dani chodo choba yendu, labo do shung di ni chanchu senpe ki nyamle yendu zane, ta chowa simchen tamche nekab ta tarduk dewa dan kiba. Tar chinen se ki gompa la kyo ne chowa simchen tamche la pepa ta ani dewa dewe ani mwa da malam ta di zo chinen se dan chungpa sho se te. Ta chinen se chidang mwa malam ngwa jaba ina ya jata mandawa mambu yorite ina dalinde chenen se ta tsongpa sho songdowa. Te chenen se ta tsongpa sho se te la ya guju chachimbo chi yore. Te kanzo chaba joba te chenen se la chaba re. Labo to ngwa te ya te chenen se ta ane tsongpa ki ngwa jabu yote. Chenen se te kanzo janju simbe ki nyamne jamba da nyingje nani zo nyingje ga rangso che. Tene degi zhodun jashimbo nando da zhowa simji tamshi jiren se do songpa shosan, jiren se do zhodun maungpa simji taye bala cheba shosi begi mwa chati yore.
If you remember at the beginning of the text, there was the praise, the homage to Chenrezi. Now there is again Chenrezi appearing at in the dedication here. And this is because we have already seen that Chenrezi is sort of the most noble bodhisattva, the most noble bodhisattva because he embodies the infinite compassion. And because this text is a bodhisattva practice, again, here in the dedication, we find the dedication of the merit for the sake of the all sentient beings, so that they may be free from suffering, so that the wholesomeness that arises from this text may be dedicated for the sake of all sentient beings, so that they can themselves become like Chenrezi, that they will equal Chenrezi. So we know that there are many different kinds of how one can dedicate. And here we see this dedication that actually it's in other words, it's saying may sentient beings achieve the state of Chenrezi. And this because Chenrezi is the embodiment of compassion, and therefore may all sentient beings achieve that state, and may the benefit for sentient beings be exactly like the benefit that Chenrezi brings forth, because he's because of his great compassion extremely powerful in bringing the benefit of beings about. So may this virtue be that powerful, like the benefit of Chenrezi.
Ini jogi chukchan de la Cheba Terang Shina Pembe Tuen Londa Ripa Mawe Sumba Tomi Chungu Shurin Poto Charwa was. Tadi Shungi Chukchangje. Then take it, I guess, and someone to Paretri.
So then the last lines are the conclusion where the author is stating his authorship. So we read, I, the monk Togme, who teaches the scriptures and logical argumentation, have written this for my own and others' benefit in the cave known as Precious Mercury. And with that, we have concluded today the 37 verses.
Sunamdi Tamji Sikpani, Tomni Shambolo Trip, Sibu Soli and Rova Show, Jambal Power, Jetra Chamber, Kundo Sambo, and Tishan, the Dakunji Juson Tal, Kiawa Data, Tamja Rato, Janjo Simjo Rinpoche, Machik Pana, Jeba Nyamba Meba Yagon, Negon to Pelva Show.